Welcome to another unit circle survival guide. In this video, we will review coterminal angles in both degrees and in radians. So an important thing to remember is that a full revolution of a circle in degrees will be 360 degrees, and a full revolution in radians is 2 pi radians. So let's start by sketching an angle that's in the second quadrant. Let's do 120 degrees or 2 pi over 3. So here's the initial side. Here's approximately the terminal side. And we know that this angle right here, let's start in degrees, is 120 degrees. So this is an efficient way to name this angle. We simply rotated from the initial side until we hit the terminal side in a counterclockwise direction. But if we don't move these rays that make up our angle, if we don't move that terminal side, we can name this angle in an infinite number of ways. And we can do that because we know there are 360 degrees of rotation in a full circle. So we know we've already rotated 120, but from this terminal side, we could keep rotating 360 more degrees. So we'd have that initial 120, and then we'd also have 360 additional. So one thing you can do to find a coterminal angle is simply add 360 degrees, and that adds 1 counterclockwise rotation. So sketching it, it would look like this. A full rotation, and then another 120 degrees of rotation. And numerically, you can find that simply by taking 120 and adding 360 degrees. So you could also name that same angle, but just with the additional counterclockwise rotation, as 480 degrees. Okay, so now you might be thinking, well, if you can rotate additionally in the counterclockwise direction, you probably can do it in the clockwise as well. So from the terminal side, let's say we went 360 degrees, but in the clockwise rotation. Well, that essentially undoes the 120 degrees. And then when we clockwise rotate, we are counting that as a negative angle. That's how we specify the rotation in the clockwise direction. So we would draw that angle like this, starting from the initial side, and we would show it here. So we would be saying we are rotating in the negative direction, and that must be 240 degrees, looking at that 120 and thinking, well, you could subtract that. So we would label that negative 240 degrees. And numerically, you can calculate that by taking 120 degrees, how we originally named the angle, and subtracting 360 degrees. And you would find that that angle, that same terminal side, could also be labeled negative 240 degrees. And so naming these angles as we have, 120, 480, and negative 240 are all called coterminal angles, or they share the same terminal side. If you wanted to continue finding additional coterminal angles to these three, you could simply continue adding rounds of 360 or subtracting 360 to continue finding additional ways to name this angle. All right, so now let's switch into radians. So instead of labeling that original angle in green, 120 degrees, we can label it 2 pi over 3. Conceptually, of course, this works exactly the same as it did in degrees. You can rotate an additional 360 degrees in the counterclockwise direction or in the clockwise direction. So to numerically find those coterminal angles, we can take our original angle. So we'll first start by adding. We know that a full rotation in radians, here's our original angle, is equal to 2 pi radians. So all we need to do is add 2 pi to 2 pi over 3. Now, of course, you will need to get a common denominator here. So rewrite 2 pi as 6 pi over 3, which of course reduces back to 2 pi. So you have to get that common denominator of 3, and now we can add 2 pi plus 6 pi over 3 is 8 pi over 3. So 8 pi over 3 and 2 pi over 3 are coterminal angles. And now let's find the coterminal angle if we subtract 2 pi or rotate in the clockwise direction. So we'd have 2 pi over 3 minus a full rotation, which is 2 pi. And again, you'd want to rewrite that with a common denominator of 3. So rewrite 2 pi as 6 pi over 3. And now we have 2 pi over 3 minus 6 pi over 3, which of course equals negative 4 pi over 3. So 2 pi over 3, negative 4 pi over 3, and 8 pi over 3 are all coterminal angles. And you could continue finding an infinite number of coterminal angles by continuing to add 2 pi or subtract 2 pi. Hopefully this helps you better understand coterminal angles and how to calculate them. I will post some links in the video description so that you can see additional unit circle survival guide topics. Thanks so much for watching.